is resigning.
Hmm.
So he's had something come up personally. He apologized for the late notice and everything, but he's just not going to be able to continue. So it is back to us as our core group here. Is there anybody else we're expecting tonight, Bob, or any? I don't think we're
no one that I'm aware.
started. Did everybody get a chance to go through the meeting notes from last time? Any updates or changes?
Nope.
Okey-doke. Okay, so the next topic, then we'll move on to the PEG channel. This is a really short update because we haven't done a whole heck of a lot, but we are meeting next Monday. There has been some delays on their side and on our side, so we are meeting next Monday. And Bob, are you going to be able to have a initial draft of a contract by then?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Yeah, I'm to the point now of just having to put in one item that they were suggesting, and then we'll have something to look at.
Great.
I think the holdup, just so that you guys are all aware of it, the holdup is going to be, in my mind, they're going to be looking for some annual type of support from the town to offset some of the cost of their supplies, their services, not their services per se in terms of staff or anything like that, but some of the costs that they incur. My recommendation of the council would be, I'm fine with that as long as we're paying a proportionate share.
Right.
And we're not footing the whole cost. So they're starting to show me some numbers of what they're talking about, but we haven't drilled down to see what that would mean to McCandless.
Okay.
So, I mean, that the easy part of this would be to take that Comcast money, put it into a separate account or fund, and then, which will drive my finance person crazy, but just draw off of that for 5 years or 6 years or whatever we would have available from that, and we wouldn't have to worry about funding it any other way.
That's a good idea, but I think we need to use some of that money for a couple of things for the town too.
Right.
You know, did
Yeah.
John ever get his updated Mac?
He has not, although we have everything ready to go.
Okay.
With that purchase, it's just a matter of pulling the trigger on it now.
Sure.
We
Okay.
were actually delaying because we're moving him around and other people around, so we wanted to make sure all wiring and everything else was where it needed to be.
Makes sense.
It is now, so we're ready to move.
Okay. And then the other thing is, do we want to buy any other equipment? Any other cameras? You know, are there other things for what you want to do, not only with the PEG channel, but with a broader communications plan that I know John's working on and you guys have been working on, that we need some additional equipment or software, editing, something along those lines?
Camera for sure.
Yeah.
A good digital camera for sure. And there may be, I think John also talked about some, maybe some microphones,
Yeah.
lapel mics or remote type mics that would work with the camera and that type of system. So I think he has a pretty good idea of what he'd like. We just have to put some numbers to those items and then, move from there.
I think it would be a good thing is if he could at least have an idea of how much all that would cost. So we know if we have, what is the Comcast grant, if I'm not mistaken, is like 34 grand.
38, I think.
38. Okay. I got most of the digits. I got one
Yeah.
digit right, and the others are a multiple of it. But of that, however much money we have, we'll pull off a portion for the town, and then how much could we potentially have left as we get into these, as we get into the negotiations with North Allegheny.
Right.
So I think that would
Okay.
be helpful to have before Monday, just so we kind of, so where we are
Right.
and are negotiating from a position of strength. Okay. Any other comments or suggestions, Joe, or Craig, or Angela, or Melinda?
I was just going to say that the microphones, the camera, that can all range in price too, from $1,000 total to several
A lot.
thousand. So
Yeah.
it really depends. And I would also suggest a good tripod for him as well.
Ah.
to
What
make-
about any lighting stuff? Any, if he's thinking of doing some interview, is there any lighting type stuff that he should think of?
There's like 3-point light kits that are pretty cheap, LED ones. If you're going to do a lot of indoor video work, it wouldn't hurt. It's probably last on the list behind microphones and tripod and camera. But if you have the money, I would say it could really help in certain locations.
Okay.
Bob, forgive me, but I forget the numbers. How long is our agreement with Comcast? Is it
10
5 years or
years.
10? Okay.
10 years.
All right.
Verizon's 5. Comcast is 10.
Okay.
Great. Anything else? Okay. Moving on to the next topic, then, the enterprise software. So I want to thank everybody for taking a look at that. Hopefully everybody's had a chance, and Joe, that really good framework that you put together, kind of flow chart, I think that was helpful. And Craig, your comment was, we had definitely missed that piece. So I guess my question to you, Bob, is when we did, we helped really create the RFP for last time around. Are you
Yes.
looking for us to do that again? Is where I think we've got a good idea, kind of now of the requirements, the framework, and the rest of that. Where do you want us? Where can we help?
I mean, ideally, if some of you have time to assist with the RFP, that would be most welcome help. Certainly understand if you don't. I think from the staff standpoint, Tricia is probably the only one who has been through well, no, I've been through one conversion. But in terms of the formal RFP process, we don't have a lot of experience with this. So I don't know how detailed to get with it, to be honest with you. I mean, the framework of when we want to, the timelines and things like that's the easy part for us. But I'm not sure, I don't know that we need something quite as detailed as we had back in 2019 and 20.
Okay.
But yeah, we need to have enough in there so that they understand what we're trying to accomplish. Probably would warrant some conversation at least to see where we go with that.
Absolutely. So let me ask my colleagues, since you all know I'm really typically better at responding to the RFPs and stuff that come forward versus creating. Craig, Joe, do you all have a framework or idea or some thought? Now, well, we have the framework, which I think we've got the requirements. What do you all suggest and advise Bob and where we could potentially help. What are your thoughts?
I
Okay,
mean,
Joe.
I think this one is much less formal than the last one. Because it's not like we specifically know, like, I want this piece of software and this package and this add-on and this add-on. So, I mean, to me, the framework and kind of what you're trying to achieve, and maybe it's less semantics, but is it, you know, a request for quote or a request for information more than a proposal? And then I guess the other question I would ask is, where is PM in this whole thing?
Yeah, I was going to ask that as well. How can PM help us, since they're running your, you know, your system at this point? And granted, what you're looking for is more cloud, but PM needs to be able to provide guidance here too.
Okay.
That's my thoughts.
We would need information from them on the technical aspects of the network currently, I'm assuming,
Mm,
and the hardware that we're using.
Not if it's cloud-based.
Well, I mean, I guess the individual desktop or
Yeah.
whatever. I mean, most everything is going to be cloud-based.
I was thinking more along the lines of experiences with other software packages,
Oh, okay.
like it and things like that. And the other way to do it is just, you know, I think we have kind of a short list, and instead of doing a proposal, you just kind of go to each one and take the time to do some full-blown demos and investigations. And
Yeah. Yeah, I think, yeah, it's going to come down to fit as much as
Mm-hmm.
cost, or maybe more so than cost. The key will be, in my mind, trying to figure out if we send this information out to those firms that we know or that we've talked to or that we suspect could help us. Whether they're focused in areas of, say, building planning and public works, or whether they're full-blown suite of modules. You know, we need to know what pieces of the puzzle we may have to put together, or whether we're looking at just one vendor. Then I guess the questions start to come into play, whether, you know, if there's multiple vendors that we may be dealing with, how do they work together? But I think the demo and some of those questions will become more and more important.
I'm wondering, kind of as we follow on with Joe, your suggestions, we do take this, and you do have a short list of vendors, right?
Yes.
We kind of know you've got the several. If we start with the accounting piece and the tax piece, you know, it's a pretty limited, and they might have other, you know, partnership to fill in some of the holes as we take this, as Joe said, more of an RFI, which is not so formal, you know, kind of an out, like, this is what we're trying to, we're looking at replacing our current packages. We're looking for something cloud-based. These are the functionalities and type of things that you need to integrate with, you know, X, Y, and Z, because that's not being changed at this point. And then, you know, set up, and then basically let them respond and, you know, see what you know, probably number of users, you know, that kind of stuff. What do you guys think about that? Just to put a little more meat on some of the bones.
Yeah, I totally agree. It makes sense to start with more of an RFI than an RFP sort of thing.
Okay.
Yeah, we talked to most of the departments, and they all have vendors that they're aware of, and we've kind of compiled the list. So I
Yep.
think we've kind of done that initial work already. And it would be good to ask them how they can solve these issues for us, how they can replace some of this software. But I think it would also be good to see what they have to offer, because there may be some things that we haven't thought about, and they might have some new software that could help us in other ways that we just haven't thought of yet.
Do you, well, maybe what we could do, I don't have any time over the next couple of days, but maybe this weekend or early next week, I could kind of take what we have pulled together and rough out a kind of a letter RFI type of stuff, unless somebody's already got a sample. Joe, you always seem to have samples of things. That's easier to edit.
Oh, this one would just be, this is what we want to do. I mean, it's almost more of a email, a letter, just
That's what I was thinking.
this is what we're trying to accomplish, and send it to the vendors and then have them tell you. Because the other thing is, some of them may have integrations, add-ons, partners that they don't publicize, but we could go into it thinking it's got to be 2 or 3 different vendors, and then you find one as we go through it that really it's kind of one vendor with two close partners, and it works pretty well.
Okay.
So I can draft up, try and wordsmith some things. And then obviously, Bob, you can take it, and Trish can take it, whoever, put it in the right language for the town.
I think
If you'd like.
even if it was a series of bullet points, things that we need to include, that may be enough, Marcy.
Yeah, and what I was planning on taking that document, the diagram, I'm gonna add Craig, the one thing that you had as well, we're looking at. And so they have a view of eventually where you want to get to,
Right.
right? But highlight, this is where we're starting. And then you start it there, because I think as a vendor, the more I knew about where my clients were trying to get to, the better solution I was able to really pull together for them, even if it was only a piece of it. So that, from my vendor perspective, that would be my suggestion from a response. Instead of limiting it just initially to the finance and tax, kind of talk about the whole thing. This is where we're headed, but we're starting here, kind of thing. Any comments or thoughts about that? All right. Well, that's that. I'll draft something up and get it out to everybody to take a view. It'll be short and sweet. You can put the right verbiage around it, but I'll kind of frame out at least my thoughts, and then Joe and Craig, you can kind of take a look at it and see if you want to add anything. And then Bob, I think it's set it out to the vendors that your team is familiar with. I think we pretty much know who the players are that you're interested in this space. And I'm really not interested in a super niche player or somebody new. As we've talked about before, I think it needs to be somebody who majors in the government space and local government space.
Yes. I had to laugh because Trisha asked me today, Trisha made a comment to me today that she said, the technology committee might be talking to some people, because we're just getting calls one after another from these various vendors, talking about their software products and how good that a fit they could be. And I thought, I don't think we're really talking to anybody, but must be the season.
Well, it is kind of the season. Everybody's coming out. We've gotten to the first of the year. We're into April.
Yeah.
If you're gonna, and then people are, they're looking at, okay, they got first half quotas to do. So yes, it's season. All right, good. Any other comments or thoughts on the enterprise software piece? All right, the one question I did have is, we've got the 2 versions of Esri, right? Have you done has anything progress been done about trying to combine those guys yet and settling in on one platform?
We're settling in on the cloud-based and moving in those directions.
Okay, good. So then I'll make sure when I put this is we're talking about cloud-based,
Yes.
the cloud-based ideas. That's the thing. Okay.
That actually probably limits you, so I'm just throwing that out. Because Esri's cloud-based stuff integrates with less things than their on-premise.
Now, for our long-term planning purposes and what we'd like to do with inspections, with public works things, I think that we need the cloud-based.
I get it. I'm just telling you that
Oh,
it's actually the opposite of most things right now.
yeah,
It tends to be harder to integrate with their cloud product versus their on-premise.
well, and if we have to go back and relook, we can. But my preference obviously would be cloud-based at this point.
Joe, are they investing? Is it that they're not investing in their cloud-based? They're still, that most of their clients are staying on-prem, or is it just it's taking them longer to get to a fully functional?
I think it's more because most of the people that really use it are counties, states, huge, and they have their own infrastructure. I mean, it's cloud, but it's really their stuff in the data center versus
It's a hybrid cloud kind of. It's
cloud versus providing the application over the cloud.
Okay, got it.
So they still have the backend SQL and all that kind of stuff. And I think it's a product of, again, when you have direct access to the database, you can do more than the cloud.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other comments, questions, thoughts around the enterprise software? All right. So I have the to-do on this one. Got it. All right. Moving on. Review of the town website. What's your thoughts there, Bob?
This is just a real simple request. I need you guys to, as much as you can, or even talk to some other friends and family and get back to you with their thoughts. But I need you to take your techie hats off for a moment and actually go on our website as residents and do things like try to find where our ordinances, our code is, where to look for whether there's any employment news out there, various committees, information on the tech committee or some of our other committees. Because it isn't a very user-friendly, in my opinion, not a user-friendly website. And my general feeling about a website is that it should leave a good first impression for a community, because it more than likely is the first impression that somebody gets of a community. And we have the ability in our contract to have an upgrade done, but we need to figure out what it is that we need to change. My experience has been that the website operates like the mind of the person who's managing it. And, that isn't always the best for the public in general. Because if I go and say, I can't find this, I get well, it's easy. Just go here, then turn around once, hit this button, and you're there. And part of it is I think we're trying to put too much information on it, which is possible. Everything sort of gets dumped there. And that might be a longer term discussion to have. But first off, I need to kind of get a sense from as many people as possible, just where the issues lie.
Okay. We can do, I don't want to speak for my counterparts here, but we can do that. But I'd also suggest that we take a look at some of the other towns' websites,
Yes.
like Cranberries, like Franklin Parks. Are there town websites that you think are really good?
There are times, and the one interesting, now they call themselves a town, but any place that has 200,000 people now is not a town. Gilbert, Arizona really is unique because they've really gone to a digital town hall kind of framework. It's like what you would aspire to. Locally, Cranberry would be the one to really look at. Interestingly enough, like what I'll do is I see the name of a community in a magazine or something, I just look them up to see what it looks like. Winchester, Virginia has a good one. Trying to think. What else? If I think of some, I will send them to you. I was just on a number of them the other day looking actually at logos and not their website per se, but if I see some, I'll send them to you.
Okay.
But I've just taken to doing a search when I go on ours because it's just easier in the end to search for what I'm looking for than spend the time digging through.
And that's usually what I do too. When I'm out, if I'm out looking for something, I try once or twice. And then if I can't find it, I do a search. And then it's like, oh, there it is. It's buried down here.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, my first thoughts from my experience of the website, there's a lot of good information, but the organization does not make sense. Like, I don't know what the difference between government departments and resident info is. So it just doesn't make sense to me. So I have to dig under everything to find what I'm looking for.
Yeah, and I don't want to use the word evolved. It's just a kind of gone on and on and on over the years since they first set it up. And it houses all of the information. You might be dead on, Craig. It's just a matter of reorganizing it. But if that's all it takes, that's all it takes. It'd be great.
So Craig and I mean, I think Craig, you bring up a great point. Just my question thought would be, well, if it's an organization, what would we like to see? And that's maybe one of the things that as I look at some of these other community websites, how are they organized? Because I think, there is a ton of great information out there. But I like you, Craig, I'm not sure what is government. That's where might I find this?
I'm looking at the Gilbert website and the Cranberry website, and they are oddly pretty similar, or not oddly, but scroll down Gilbert and you get latest news, meeting and events, latest updates and videos. You scroll down Cranberry, latest news, events and activities, stay connected. So I mean, it kind of the user experience on them are roughly the same, and of course they're the newer. They both have the newer kind of parallax templates and some of that kind of stuff, which is part of it, big part of it.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things, because you want to make sure when you hit the website, you want to be able to see, what's new and get your attention, as well as be able to find certain things. So it's got to be organized like a citizen is going to look towards it, if that is your intended audience. You may want to think about, depending upon what the audience is there a citizens tab? Is there an employee, a citizens area employee? I just, again, tossing out some ideas.
See that
Right.
Gilbert has a pay online button up at the top.
Woohoo!
Exactly.
and it's on the left on Cranberries.
And I would not be surprised one bit if Cranberry went to Gilbert to try to emulate it.
I,
Well, there's-
I think it's the other way. Since Cranberries is a Civic Plus one, I think the web developer that Gilbert used probably borrowed it from Civic Plus.
Oh, probably. Now,
Well,
just
go
so
ahead.
you're aware, the website platform that we use is what I will call the economy version of Civic Plus. I went with that a number of years ago, then Civic Plus acquired the company. So we're technically under the umbrella of Civic Plus, but we've never migrated over to the true Civic Plus platform.
Could we do that without spending a lot more money?
No. I mean, you
Yeah.
can't do it without spending money. And it will, I jokingly say this, but most anything you want to do with Civic Plus will cost you at least $25,000. It seems like that's their number, no matter what you want to do, it will cost $25,000. So that will be the starting point to make any change.
Is that a one-time charge?
One-time charge, and then their annual fee would be around 8,000 or 9,000.
How much are we paying today?
About 2,000.
Okay. I do like this website. Let's go through it.
Yeah, it might be difficult to stay on what we're using and update it because I mean, I'm not familiar with it, but we might be reaching some limitations of what we can do on the
Yeah.
current platform. So
No-
it might
no
just
doubt.
be necessary. Now, there is some reorganization that could be done without any charge. I mean, there's almost too many places to go to see what you're looking for. I mean, there's quick links, there are popular pages, and then there's a navigation bar at the top. So you don't really know where to look first. So, I mean, there's some organization that could be changed, but if you really want an updated website, I think you have to move to a different platform.
Yep. I would agree. I guess the question comes down to as well, what is, priority for council? Is it, how much of the digital stuff? I know we've all been talking about the sense of community center, physical buildings been a topic of discussion. Is it, is this a cornerstone of some of the broader community-based efforts that we'd like to do? In which case, spending some money here might be the appropriate response in order to uplift it. Because I think, Joe, you're right. We may be getting to the, because this is a pretty static website, which is not standard anymore.
I think the one thought that I have is that the priority still needs to be what we're doing with the enterprise software, because at the end of the day, a lot of what we have to do ties back to that work. You can't do, unless you can jump off of a website and do an online form for a building inspection or get a park pavilion permit, or, pay a tax bill, which we can do. We're not accomplishing anything. So, this may be, I think we need a fix that gets us through maybe 2 years. and then we move forward. So maybe we reorganize, get all these other pieces of the puzzle in place, and then have a more dynamic software or website planned for 2 years out. Ideally, it would be next year, but I don't know that that will work.
That's fair. Would it make sense for some of us to participate in a conversation with Civic Plus as to what we can do? Because I think some of it, you talk about the that we have the ability for an upgrade.
Mhm.
What does that entail? And trying to find out if there's other new features and functions that can be included, or is it just a redesign with
I
everything
think
that we have?
the first conversation probably should be with John, because he's had the most interaction with the folks over there at Civic Plus. So, and I think he'll have a better idea of what he's been told, and then we can follow that up with a conversation with the Civic Plus people.
Okay. So do you guys, who would like to be involved in that conversation with John? Who would like to help out with this project?
Can help with it.
Great, Joe. Okay. All right, well, let's, I think it's a good point to have a discussion with John, because some of it, we could come up with some brilliant ideas, but if it's not within the realm of what some of the functionality is, those ideas will have to be put on hold. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. All right, so the next step here is to set up a time with John. I can reach out to him, or Joe, you could take the lead reaching out to him. I think this is going to be kind of pretty short. This is going to be a pretty short thing as to what we can do and what we can't do. Because I do like, if we look at, and maybe what I could ask Craig and Joe is to continue to look around and put together some thoughts maybe in the next week of, okay, if you were to prioritize some of the things that we have, what some of the changes might be in order to make it more user-friendly, for the general population than what it has here, that would be helpful. If I could ask you to do that.
Probably the big thing to ask Civic Plus would be basically give us some examples of websites that we could just switch templates and what that would look like.
That's a good point.
Because of just poking around a little bit, like Neshannock Township has one that looks closer to McCandless. It's a little bit better, but it's not Cranberry or Ross.
Okay.
So there probably are, some templates, better looking templates, more organized templates, and then it's just a matter of shifting some categories and pages around a little bit.
Great idea. Okay.
I can reach out to John and talk to him and set up a time maybe to discuss it a little bit more.
Oh, that'd be awesome.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe. All right. Anything else on the website? Okay, now the next two topics are kind of fun because I think they have money coming in for them too.
Yeah, the town expects over the next 2 years to receive $2,787,000 through the stimulus funds. It'll come in two parts. We expect the first 1.3, 1.4 to arrive in the next 60 days. And in looking at the the general guidance that was issued or included in the act itself. We can use it to fund infrastructure, which they defined as water, sewer, and broadband expansion of broadband servicing. So that you have that permission in the act to do some expansion. What I expect that we will be doing will be, just to give us some flexibility, we also can offset revenue losses from the year immediately prior. So if we look at the revenue loss from 2019 to 2020, we can pretty much account for at least that 1.3 million in revenue loss. If we put that in and we account for it that way, then we have much more flexibility in how we do this. So looking at both of these things together, something crossed my mind. I wanted to ask your thoughts on it, because we can accomplish a number of different things in this potential scenario. We've talked about putting cameras at intersections. We think that it makes sense to put cameras in the parks from a security standpoint. Obviously, internet service was going to be part of what we need to consider in any of these cases, like how we're going to get the communication back to the town hall from the image that we capture in the cameras. So as I've been trying to think through things that we need to be doing, things that meet the requirements of the act, I started thinking, well, I might be overreaching here, but if we were to put Wi-Fi in the parks, does that technically expand broadband in the community? I don't know the answer to that. We don't have a whole lot of guidance from the Department of Treasury yet to know whether we're on the right track or not. But I at least wanted to throw that out because I'm thinking to myself, if we're going to spend the money on putting these connections in, whether it's at a traffic or an intersection for traffic cameras or whether it's in the parks, why not also provide this service and expand internet access in the community at the same time? So I sort of posed the question as like, is this something for you guys to say, Bob, you're stupid, get it out of your head? Or is this something that you say, there's some possibility there?
What do you guys think?
I think there's definitely some possibilities there. If there is no internet connection in the park at all, first thing to do would be to have that access installed for the cameras. And then as far as hooking up access points for Wi-Fi for residents in the park, I don't think it's a far reach. And I think it would be a possibility.
Okay.
Craig and Joe, comments?
Concern I'd have if we had Wi-Fi there is when it goes down, who gets to pull the plug and reboot it or figure out why it's down? Or are people going to be complaining while it's down? Is it?
Of course
I'm
they
not
will.
opposed to it at all. I think it's a decent idea, but if there is a service, people are going to expect a certain level of service.
I guarantee you that we'll get complaints.
Right.
We'll live with that. We'll figure that part out. You know, that's not a difficult fix in the end to train somebody to reboot that.
You're also gonna have to keep all the access points, the router, all that good stuff out there fully up to date, because if you're giving somebody access to your network, they could try to exploit it.
That was gonna be my,
Yeah.
I was waiting for Craig to mention something. Yeah,
Yeah.
you've got the potential security exposure.
I mean, it would have, I would not tie it back to anything or access that information from anything that would be then connected to any other parts of our network. It would have to be independent back at town hall somehow too. But it crossed my mind as I was reading through the provisions of the act, as I'm thinking about what we need to be doing, as like trying to put a budget together for all of this, and knowing we talked about it, I wanted to at least bring it up. Whether we do it as part of the expenditures this year, whether we expand upon it for next year. I'd like to come up with some kind of a game plan if we think it makes sense.
My personal opinion is I think it makes sense. I think you need, as you said, get more direction from the Treasury Department. You know, what specifically, you know, can we do with things? And then the other point would be prioritize it where, you know, which parks, you know, kind of think through as you're starting to put a game plan, where would you start? And as you know, others has mentioned, it's, you know, the support of it, right? It's not just putting the stuff out there. How are you going to prevent it from potentially being damaged? What kind of security goes around it? All that fun stuff.
The other thing I can mention too, I don't know if this is a good idea or bad idea or not, but a few years ago, I know the city of Pittsburgh worked with Comcast and Xfinity to put that in their parks as Wi-Fi hotspots. I think they put in like 22 different areas a few years ago. So I don't know if that's something we could talk to Comcast about, of something from them they could install and then they could manage it and update and all that sort of thing.
Worth a conversation.
Absolutely.
How about something in northern McCandless that's in Consolidated's footprint to kind of get Consolidated out of the 20th century?
I think we can, you know, I'd be open to suggestion at this point.
Well, I mean, I'm just, you know, Southern, we have Verizon and Comcast, so we have
Right.
two choices with someday similar speeds if Comcast actually ever puts the gig out, both the bidirectional gig, which they can do now if they wanted to, but they don't, or they charge a couple $1,000 a house to hook it up. But, you know, I think Consolidated still basically DSL or glorified DSL. So, I mean, I guess that would be the other question. Is there anywhere in the town that is not serviced by one of the three, Consolidated, Comcast, or Verizon at this point?
I'm not aware of any
Yeah,
location.
I wouldn't think, but
Yeah.
It's worth a question. Yeah. So the town is at least one of the three. I mean, living up north, I know, you know, there was really no choice. So it was, you only have Comcast because Consolidated, as you said, Joe, I hung on for as long as I just was like, guys, I can't do this anymore. Cut that cord. There was no choice. And I don't know if they're investing others or if that's another option, you know, again, or something, if they, you know, I don't know the health of their business at this point.
They seem to be hanging in.
They may be just like hanging in by their fingertips.
They could be. They could be. This is a tough tough market anymore. Well, you know, this is something for us to be thinking about. We don't need to make any decisions. I can certainly explore the question about any unserved areas. I mean, I can tell you in the 2 years I've been here, I've not gotten any requests from areas for service. But that doesn't necessarily mean there aren't any. I think today with some of the choices available, people may not even worry about it like they used to. But we'll start there
Okay.
and maybe look seriously with the parks, and then we can go from that point on.
Do the franchise agreements preclude you from bringing anybody else in?
They're not exclusive. That is, as far as I can remember.
What are you thinking, Joe?
I want to confirm that, but I don't remember them being exclusive. Consolidated might be the only one that I really need to worry about.
And Consolidated might still have that rural telephone exemption. That was
Yeah.
always the problem with them, where they had the rural exemption and they could basically do whatever they want.
Yeah,
And I think that probably still applies, but
yeah,
I think it's Go Net Speed. It's a fiber. It's like one of these fiber startups that I think they did it in Beaver Falls, and I think they did it in McKees Rocks, and they've got it in some other states where they, you know, come in and light up places with fiber, and you know, it's pretty good price. I think it's like 80 or 90 bucks a month for 1 gig fiber both directions, because again, we're talking about a gig now. In 5 years, it's going to be people want 10 gigs at the house.
mhm.
I mean, so, you know, I don't know if that something like that could be a way to get at some of that stimulus money.
Okay. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't think that there will be any lack of ideas to use it.
No,
But I at least want to explore this along with other.
Yep.
Everything else. Then the only other thing I wanted to mention to you folks, I'm still getting a little bit of background on this, but the town was awarded a Governor's Excellence Grant, or no, Governor's Excellence Award for the improvements that it has made to IT and communications. So we were nominated by a group of citizens. This wasn't self-serving on our part. I heard about it late last week and admittedly was dumbfounded because I wasn't aware of any of it. But I certainly wanted to mention it to you guys before we put it out publicly or too much publicly. And thank you for all of your help in us, you know, the background work that you guys have done. We wouldn't be where we're at without your help. So thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
You're welcome. That's really cool.
That is pretty cool. I know I didn't nominate us for it, so it'd be interesting to know where it came from.
Yeah, I know one or two of the people. Still surprised by the whole thing. That it sort of came out of left field, that somebody thought enough of the improvements. You know, because my comment had been, well, all we're doing is our job. We're just doing what we're supposed to be doing. And, you know, the response I got was, sometimes it isn't what you're doing right now, it's where you came from. So you helped us get there. So thank you.
You're welcome. All right. Anything, well, I do have, we now have an open position on the board, on the committee, so
We'll
need to get
We'll
that.
put a
process.
motion on the agenda for Monday night's council meeting to accept that resignation and then open up the process for applications.
Great,
Um,
thank you.
One thing that has changed since we first interviewed all of you folks is that we've sort of streamlined the interview process. And what we'll do is that once the applications close in 30 days from the time we post it, Melinda and I will get with Marcy and with Angela to coordinate a time to do interviews of the candidates. Then our group will make a recommendation for full council.
Oh, good, so we'll be
Um,
involved this time.
Yeah, you'll be involved and, we'll just set it up, I guess at this point via Zoom and so it'll be a little, hopefully more convenient for everybody. And we can blow through the interviews in a relatively short amount of time, talk it through and have a recommendation ready.
Great,
So it's been working well in the other committees.
okay,
So
good. All right, does anybody else have any other items for us to discuss tonight?
that was a long meeting. All right.
It's only an hour, Bob. It's not that long. We just talked a lot about it, a lot of good
Well,
things.
It's what planning commission was 3 hours long last night. So this is still
Yeah, it was.
wonderful.
Yes. It was at least that last night.
Yes.
All right, and does anybody else, seriously, any other topics that anybody has that they want to, like breaking news? All right, just then I've got the to-do on the enterprise software. Joe, you're taking the lead on the website in order to get with John and at least have initial discussion. We're all going to be taking a look at the website, and I would love to have some feedback from you. We'll just, because we'll get busy in the next week. If you could kind of some of your thoughts, just core dump, send them out. That would be great as we hear more about this from Joe, as what we think we can do. And Bob, you're not asking us to do anything at this point except noodle on the broadband and the Wi-Fi at this point,
Yeah,
correct?
just noodle on that. And on my to-do list is to get prices on cameras, tripods, mics,
Yep.
maybe a light kit from John, so that we have that information ready for our meeting with the school.
On Monday, yes.
Yes.
Okay, good. All right, do I hear a motion to adjourn for the evening?
So moved.
In a
I'll
second?
second.
Thank
All
you.
right, thanks, everyone. Have a good evening.
Thanks.
Bye.
See
See ya.
ya. Bye.
Night.
Bye, Bob.